Every founder has a first pitch, the one they stayed up all night building and bet everything on. I'm Patrick Thompson, founder of Clarify.
And I've sat across from thousands of these pitches. Some changed the world, and some didn't make it past the first meeting. I'm Somrat Niyogi, partner at Recall Capital.
And this is the first pitch. Each episode, a founder shares the story of what started it all, what they got right, what they got wrong, and the journey says.
Let's get into it.
You're taking on a category like CRM, you're going after 800-pound gorilla. I remember talking to one investor, if I hear another pitch with linear for CRM, I'm out.
Do you believe in the memo as a prime sort of artifact to preparing for a pitch? I already have a deck. Why do I have to have a memo?
Yeah, I realized that you're always pitching and you're always essentially selling yourself and the team.
If founder is listening to this right now and trying to work on their first pitch, what advice would you give them?
There's two things. I always tell folks, do the work. Don't go pitch right out the gate.
Do you have your own mental model of what objectives I'm going to get before you go into these meetings?
These are the 3 reasons why you shouldn't invest in the company. If I can get people over the line on those 3 exemptions right away, then it was easy to have a conversation.
The best products built are those where the founder has a high degree of empathy with people they're building for.
So Pat, why are we here?
Well, Somrat, thanks for doing this with me. I'm very excited. I mean, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is just the founder journey in general. And you've been a founder and a VC, and you've listened to a lot of other founders pitch. And we wanted to put something together that gave folks a perspective on how to pitch a VC and how to think about it as a founder and what that journey looks like. So excited to co-host this with you.
This is something I'm really passionate about. I think pitches matter. And, one of the first ones we're going to do is yourself. It's something that I remember the specific day. I remember the pitch particularly, but for folks that are listening, we're going to be covering founders and the pitches, their first pitches, and the things that went right, the things that they went wrong, and how that's changed in this in the current time period. Obviously, I'm an investor in Clarify, so excited to do this with you. Maybe we can kind of start from the very beginning. Take me back to where you were when you were thinking about Clarify. I think you were in Amplitude at that time. I think your wife was pregnant at the time as well.
No, we had just had our first kid and thinking about having a second kid at the time. Okay. Yeah, so it was dynamic times for sure.
And was this what year? What year was this?
This was 23. So started thinking about this in Q1 of 23. I'd been at Amplitude, had acquired my previous company iteratively in 21. We're starting to get a little itchy and antsy and wanting to go do another startup. And I'd been kind of ruminating on this problem that I had as a founder. Started going and talking to a lot of other people, doing customer discovery, and then I put a memo together, and it took about a year for us to get to the conviction point where we're like, yes, there's something here. We need to go do this, and now's the time. And then I got introduced to you, and the rest is history.
How many people did you pitch initially to come to this being I figured this thing out?
Well, so a lot of my focus was actually talking to customers and making sure that we're validating the problem and then the solution validation. And then once we had enough conviction there that yes, the problem was real, then we started going and talking to different investors, right? So we probably pitched 35 investors, including yourself. And then that was enough where we're like, okay, we know exactly what we're doing. We kind of refined the pitch over time. And we jumped ship and started Clarifying in January of 24.
And what was, tell me about that first version of the pitch. And did that, by the way, did the pitch change before you even talked to a VC or did you talk to me or was it the same pitch that kind of was the same throughout the whole time?
I mean, it definitely evolved over time, right? I think some advice I give a lot of founders is work your way up to the folks that you want to actually raise capital from. So, we had a lot of shots at goal, effectively talking to folks, just trying to get better and more comfortable answering questions, especially when you're taking on a category like CRM. You're going after, the 800-pound gorilla. There's a lot of questions that you get back from VCs. I remember talking to one investor, if I hear another pitch with linear for CRM, I'm out. And you just learn to kind of narrate a little bit better and understand what questions these folks are going to have and be able to have good responses to those. So, I think the other thing for us is we weren't really trying to pitch, right? We put a memo together. We really wanted to, let the narrative speak for itself. And, I realized coming out of that you're always pitching and you're always essentially selling yourself and the team. And so, we had I think in hindsight, we probably should have been a little bit more prepared for the pitches that we were giving.
Tell me about the memo. Is that something, do you believe in the memo as a prime sort of artifact to doing preparing for a pitch?
I do. I thought for me, it's like I use drafting and writing as a way of thinking through things. So for me, it's like, yes, you can put a pitch deck together and it's visual and you can tell a story around that. But for me, actually doing like a long form memo was a lot easier for me to actually wrap my head around exactly how I wanted to.
But do you like advise other founders? If you were talking to a founder,
yeah.
But why you're like, hey, even because they're like, oh, I have a deck.
Yeah.
The classic, I already have a deck. Like, why do I have to have a memo?
I think the memos, I mean, I think of this as...
Or do you think it's both?
I think it's both. I mean, we had both. Yeah. I mean, we definitely had both. I think I
definitely received both, so I can...
Yeah. I think it's funny. I mean, I think we were early customers of Figma Slides. So it was a Figma Slides thing that we put together, and it was interesting at the time. But yeah, we had the memo, and the memo is kind of our lead behind, whereas because once you jump into a pitch, right, you're typically not like going slide by slide by slide. So a lot of what we're effectively trying to do is just make sure that the story was right on the memo. Because a lot of it becomes conversations, right? You're having a conversation with a VC and like you're pretty much, if they're leaning in and engaged, like you're off the slides in the first 5 minutes anyway. So you're not controlling really the narrative.
Well, so let's talk about that pitch, right? So what was that first kind of version of the story that you were kind of telling about Clarify?
Yeah, I mean, the pain points that we're really trying to highlight, and a lot of this is I was trying to pull investors in. I was like, hey, tell me about your experience using CRM. And for you, you've been a founder who had been at Salesforce.
I've used every CRM.
You used every CRM. You'd started a CRM company, so it was a lot easier, right? You knew the pain. So a lot of my pitch was trying to pull the investor in. Like, tell me about your own journey using CRM. What do you like? What do you dislike? And I can tell right away most of them hated their CRM. And so it was fairly easy for me to then connect into that pain point. But a lot of it was just trying to make sure that the pain was well understood. So leaning back onto our own prior experience as founders, having gone and integrated with a bunch of different CRMs back in like our CDP days, having tried to help companies automate a lot of their go-to-market journeys before. So our previous company was a customer data platform, right? So this data layer that effectively integrates across your entire go-to-market stack. And so we'd worked with 1,000 companies just trying to help them set things up. And so it was laying back on that prior experience, going to VCs, telling them like, hey, this is the state of the land, LLMs are out. This is all going to be disrupted now. Like there needs to be a new CRM thought from the ground up with AI, and really trying to understand, like, did they believe that future world should exist? And we didn't want to like have to sell them that future world. We wanted to actually work with VCs that believed that future world should exist. Because it's always easier to find somebody who believes in that future that you're trying to create than to convince somebody that future world should exist.
So let's talk about two things that you kind of brought up. One is this, you started with pain, right? A lot of founders that are kind of doing their first pitch, like they're like, hey, here's what the technology can do and so forth. I mean, you started with customer pain. I mean, do you think was that intentional?
The thing about like if you're solution oriented, right, you probably have the wrong solution right off the gate, right? Like most startups end up iterating quite a bit. Like our first version of Clarify sucked. Right? Like you know this, right? Like like,
it didn't suck that bad, but it had some room for improvement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we shipped a effectively the beta version in about 3 months, right? It was like it was enough to get validation to show customers and have conversations, but that was really the goal of the artifact that we created. And so like the goal is not to be solution oriented, it's to be problem oriented, right? And it's like, hey, do I understand the problem better than every other founder out there? And do I have the process of discovery to continue to adapt as the market evolves, right? Like we're in a very dynamic market right now, right? Like things are changing at an accelerated pace. So like you might have the right solution at one point in time, but if you can't keep up with the market and the pace of change, then it doesn't really matter. You got lucky. You didn't have a systematic way of doing that. So for us, it's always like, hey, lead with the pain. I recommend that to founders. Lead with the pain. Like talk about your process, right? Talk about how you do customer discovery and validation, because your business will evolve over time. The market will shift from underneath you. No one knew how such a change of force AI was going to be as well. And so like, if you don't have that process nailed, like you might find product market fit and you might lose it just as quickly.
One of the things that everybody thinks about when they hear a CRM pitch is like, one, crowded category, really, really fucking hard, right? Like, how did you navigate these sort of like kind of classic, like, did you know going in, like, I'm gonna have this as like, I mean, do you have your own mental model of like what objections I'm gonna get before you go into these meetings the first time?
Yeah, I mean, the one framework that I also really, really liked was, these are the 3 reasons why you shouldn't invest in the company. And if I can get people over the line on those 3 exemptions right away, then it was easy to have a conversation. If people are like, hey, I don't want to invest because of the crowded category, I'm like, there's nothing I'm going to convince you that this is the right thing for you then. So,
but were you trying to like
counter.
where you kind of like peel that out in this sort of first meeting when you meet a
For
VC?
sure, my time's valuable.
Right.
VC's time's valuable. If in the first 5 to 10 minutes, like if it's not there, like it's not there, right? Like most VCs invest in people, and so it's typically more of a relationship based anyway. So it's like I want to suss that out as quickly as I can, right? And if we're not clicking right away, like I don't have to convince you to invest, right? Like that's
did you like when you were doing your first pitch, and if you got that sense, did you just
I ended some talks early, right? And I was like, hey, thanks so much for your time.
would you recommend that to
Yeah,
founders?
100%. Like if you're not,
Hey, if this is something you're not feeling, I always say like, why the fuck are you here? Like, I mean, I don't not in that specific way, but like, as you said, their time is valuable too. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's sales. At the end of the day, if I'm on a sales call and I disqualify somebody, like why am I going to waste their time?
Right.
Like, oh, hey, well, I don't think we have the right.
But they're like, maybe I can get excited about it.
You're like, yeah, it's great. Let me know when you have the pain, and like, let me know when you're excited. And we'll recontinue the conversation.
Right. Like so you're like qualified. There's not even worth even spending follow-up meetings with them.
I mean, the thing about investment is it's an exchange of information, right? So like for a founder, you have very limited time. VCs tend to have a lot of time, especially depending on who you're talking to. Like if I'm talking to a like general partner or managing director, if I'm like, I'll typically like to build the relationship. If I'm talking to an associate or principal, like, hey, it's their job is to do discovery and extract as much information from you and learn about as much about the market as they can, right? So like it's their job to keep you on the call and get you talking. Right. So like, but like they're, if they're not bought in, right, like it doesn't cost them anything. It costs them 20, 30 minutes. Whereas, it's costing you a ton of energy and time to go have that conversation, right? Like you're putting your heart and soul on the table. Right. So that's the hard part about being a founder is like you're showing up every single day. And just like, for me, it's like, if it's not clicking, I would end the call. Just like if I'm interviewing a candidate to join Clarify, if it's not there, it's like, I want to be respectful of their time. If I don't think we're going to be hiring them, or if I see a red flag or yellow flag, like I'm very upfront about it.
One of the things that, especially as I reflect on, our first conversations is like kind of balancing between what the product, what you plan to build in the near term versus a vision of a future. I mean, it's people, this is a tricky thing to sort of balance. Obviously, people are like, oh my God, CRM, they think of Salesforce, they think of HubSpot, they think of like 9 trillion things that need to be done. And then there's like, how do I go build something? Sometimes people are really good at landing the here's what I plan to do in the next 12 months. And then they miss the vision. Some people have the vision, but they're like the clarity of why the starting point matters. Walk me through of how you pitch this, because I'm in the case of I want to go reimagine CRM from the ground up, using, LLMs and AI, like I think people are like, oh yeah, that's gotta be fun. But like, man, how do you go about it?
I mean, we basically had, and this is, I think, harder to execute in hindsight than it was 2 years ago to think about, but we said that, hey, this is the path forward, right? Like we wanted to build a very flexible data model that actually could be leveraged by LLMs, right? That captured both all the time series data, the unstructured data, and the relational data that our organization can have, right? And we wanted this corpus of data for, agentic workflows. And so we spent a lot of time building out that data platform from its core. We wanted to build a ton of automation, effectively agentic automation from day zero. So we spent a lot of time using AI to just automate boring things like email follow-up, meeting prep, meeting summarization, task creation, name it, deal detection. So those are the two things that we're like, hey, in order for us to have a differentiated value prop in market, we have to have the right data, and we have to build kind of this agent layer from the beginning. And then the third thing that we really cared a lot about is how do we build a delightful customer experience, right? So my background is design. We have a lot of folks on the team that care about raising the bar and building quality craftsmanship product. And we spent a lot of time doing that. And I think that's a lot harder generally said than done. But that's what kind of attracted our early customers as well. The other thing that we talked a lot about is kind of effectively, this compound startup notion on Parker Conrad at Rippling. We wanted to consolidate a lot of these point solutions, and it's hard. Honestly, that was like, we thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was to do that. 2 years in, I think we've executed fairly well on some of those things, but it was a lot harder. It took a lot more time, I think, for us to nail than what we originally said.
What were some you're doing these VC meetings? What was like a bad meeting? Is there when you look back, it's like, oh man, that was a really bad meeting? And what's a version of a great meeting? Like, how do you know that? Oh, I got how do you think about that?
I mean, I remember getting introduced to this partner, walking across the street, introduced from Spencer at Amplitude to this person, and like I actually really respect this fun. I think it's amazing fun. I mean, I walked into the meeting, and within the first 2 minutes, I was like, oh, this person's out. Right? It was just very, very clear. They're not interested in this category at all. And I think part of that's just like me doing my research and not talking to this like, if I don't think that they're actually interested in the category, it's hard to know, right? Like sometimes you don't know, but like when I jumped in the meeting, I was like, okay, like this is going sideways. Like, how do I recover? And it's like, hey, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate this. I'll keep in touch. We'd love to keep you posted. I don't think right now it's a good time. And just end it. It's like, it's okay. I think that was something that was like a lesson learned, right? Because you're trying to, like, especially as a founder, you're trying to win, right? And so like, you're trying to sell. So if you're trying to sell something who doesn't believe, right? And it's like,
what was like the hardest question you got? And
why us, right? Like, why us, right? And like, this is because I mean, people believe that the category exists, right? People believe that the time for disruption was, everything happens in like these 10-year cycles, right? And so thinking about like Salesforce, HubSpot, like there hadn't really been a new entrant in the market that was disruptive of those existing incumbents. So people believed kind of that the timing is right. People believed in the advancements of AI and LLMs that can automate a lot of the work that teams are doing. So the thing that I had to, put ourselves out there was like, why us as a team? Like, why are we the team to do this? And, it's funny, 2 years in, right, we were one of probably 3 new entrants into the market around that time. And now there's a dozen, right? A dozen well-funded, experienced teams trying to tackle this same exact problem. So it's still, even today, when I talk to VCs, it's why us? Why should they believe in us as a team? Why are we the winning team?
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the market. Like, has the pitch, if you were pitching VCs now, has the pitch changed? Do you think the pitch has changed? Or like what is staying the same, and what do you think has changed in the way that you would talk about Clarify?
I think the things that we thought AI were going to be able to automate were true. The things that AI can automate now are probably 10 times more impactful as what they can do 10 or even 2 years ago, right? So I think the whole notion of like this AI native CRM as a category, that's held true. Now, it's the question of, are you building an entire platform? Are you building this agent layer on top of it? There's a lot of companies that are kind of taking the top slice of it that integrate with the different existing system record. There's a lot of companies that are trying to build everything from the ground up. And when I say we're more in that category, I think that all held true. I think the thing that I think changed the most is, how do you get people to switch from the existing systems record? We assumed that was going to be a lot harder. It actually hasn't been. So like, we haven't needed to educate the market. We have a lot more people wanting to switch from the existing incumbents, and we built a lot of tooling to help with the migration. So what would have traditionally taken, and you were, kind of SE, SA kind of role before, right? What would traditionally have taken like somebody, weeks to switch or even months to switch their existing go-to-market tech stack, we can do it in a matter of days now, right? Like, it's change management, but the actual technology of moving the data around, figuring out the workflows, AI has actually helped drastically improve our time to market with customers as well.
If you relook at the vision of what you plan to build, has the vision changed, or is the vision kind of staying what you shared with me a few years ago?
I think the whole notion about building a compound startup, kind of an all-in-one solution for early stage teams, is still stayed the same. I don't think we've evolved too much there. I mean, we have a lot different types of businesses using us than I would have imagined. We have a lot of VCs using us now as well, and that wasn't necessarily a category I thought we would be building in. But the product vision has stayed the same. I think the only thing that's really changed is, how do we think more about it as like an ambient solution, right? Something that just like runs and operates in the background. This whole notion about building like background agents that just work and automate work. I think we were the first CRM that had full automation capabilities using AI. But we're leaning in very, very heavily where it's like, hey, we meet you where you are, whether or not that's Slack or Claude or iMessage, you name it. You should be able to engage with the CRM. So I think the one thing that has changed is like customers' expectations about how they engage with tools like Clarify. And instead of having to log into these tools, like, where can we meet them?
How about, I mean, obviously 12 to a lot of new entrants.
Yeah.
How has that changed how you talk about Clarify to whether it's potential investors or even customers? Like, because I imagine it's you have to sharpen it a lot.
You have to, we use the expression, you have to sharpen the pencil, right? Like, you have to get very clear on like why you, right? And like why your product. I think the thing that I always land into is like, well, great. Have you tried it? Right? Like, we spend a lot of time and energy trying to build a great product solution, right? So we try to push people into the product and be as much product led as we can. I think this is an area where our competition just isn't. Just don't think that they're spending as much time doing that. And we want the best product to win. It's not to say that the best product always wins in market, right? Like, sales and marketing help a ton. And we have a go-to-market team now as well. But we want to invest our dollars in building the best product experience for teams. And so for us, when we're in a competitive deal, we say, hey, great, let's get you up and running. And do a bake-off, right? Like if we're not the best product, we don't want to sell you the solution. We want your feedback, and we want to make sure that we're building the right product experience, but we want the product to win.
Got it. And when you look at the products you've built so far and how you talk about that, is there anything that has surprised you about what you might have had a hypothesis about, hey, here's what we think the market wants, but it surprised you in a different way?
Yeah, I think there's like non-obvious decisions you have to make as a founder as you build things. And like one of the non-obvious decisions I think we made was like having the integrated call recorder from like day zero. Okay, so we had integrated call recorder, and that was a non-obvious decision because I think, we could have said, hey, let's just go integrate it with the Otters and the Fathoms and the Grains of the world. We said, no, like, let's just go build this instead. And we ended up building something in a matter of weeks that got out the door. That customer's just love, right? And got us access to all the data that we needed in order to automate the work. And since then, every other competitor out there has kind of followed suit, right? If it was a non-obvious decision until you do it, right? And I think those are the ones where you're like, okay, how do we make sure that the next time we're in a situation where there's a non-obvious decision, that we make the right one? I think I'd say the other things that have helped us quite a bit is we leaned really into this notion of like this headless CRM early on, right? So we have a great developer API. We probably have the best MCP support on the market today. And, I think that was also a non-obvious decision at the time. We didn't know whether or not MCP was going to be the de facto industry standard as far as protocols. But we were like, hey, we're going to be first to market with this. We were also laying into how do we become first to market with agents being able to buy our software, right? We're going to be one of the first tools where agents can fully sign up and spin up Clarify as your kind of headless go-to-market stack. And that is another non-obvious decision right now that companies are going to have to make. But it's something where we feel enough conviction that we want to go spend dollars and resources to build those types of things. And hopefully they pan out, but there is risk. These are bets at the end of the day.
If you had to go back to your original kind of pitch of would you have changed anything? What would you have changed?
I would have. I think one of the things that we talked a lot about was not replacing human labor, right? We wanted to talk about like, hey, accelerating human potential, right? So it's like, instead of having to like, hey, like I have this debate, I think with you sometimes as well, and still is like, we were like, hey, we're not building agents to replace people. I still think that is a good value prop in market. I think the reality is most of the buyers expect to be able to get some levels of efficiency with AI. So they're either thinking about, hey, how do I increase the quota of my reps, or so aka they can do more with less. And I think
it sounds good from a VC
it
perspective.
Does, yeah. For me, I think this is the hard part as a founder is I don't want to like have people lose their jobs, right? And that, still today, it's like we're starting to capture more ROI analysis on like how Clarify actually impacts these businesses, and we've seen that like people are able to close more deals and they're able to go further with less people.
Would you have changed the pitch, or because in some ways when you're raising money, people want to believe in some sort of highly opinion? I mean, or do you feel like people are like, I don't really know whether, because the cost of revenue value proposition is pretty strong. So
it is. Yeah. I think this is, if you, the comparable would be like these like agent factories for software development, right? Like, are you replacing engineers? Are you making engineers more productive? Or are you enabling new people who were gatekept from doing engineering to now build, right? What's a product? And, I think that's the question of how do you position the solution, right? And how do you position the solution to VCs, and how do you position the solution to your customers? So for us on the customer side, like, I don't like going and talking to founders about like, hey, I like, like, hey, how do you go build your go-to-market motion on Clarify, and how do you do more with less? That I love talking about. What I don't love talking about to VCs is the impact on the economy when you're able to say, hey, like, we're replacing labor, right? And I think that's fair. Like, I think there's a lot of companies out there that are doing that right now. I think it's just, look at the macroeconomic climate, right? 40% of the US based off knowledge work, right? Like, it's going to have repercussions I don't think we're necessarily prepared to handle.
What's if a founder is listening to this right now and trying to work on their first pitch, what advice would you give them? That like, what's the one thing you think that they need to like really think about?
I think so there's two things. I always tell folks, like, do the work, right? Like, don't go pitch right off the gate. Like, do the work, right? The more confident you are, the more work that you've done to prove out that your idea should exist, that your product should exist in market, the easier it is to talk to a VC. Right? If you like, I'm, especially in my perspective is, if you're at a company and you're like, hey, I just want to go start a company, and you'll start talking to VCs, it's like, There are people that will get funded from that just based off of the fact that they worked at companies like Stripe or Atlassian, you name it, right? I think just go do the work, right? Like there's,
What do you mean like? What do you mean by that? 'Cause I have a perspective on this.
I think a lot of it's just customer validation, right? So a lot of it is like how much do you know about the problem that you're solving? How much do you know that about the competitive solution set that your customers, your prospective customers are using?
Yeah.
How do you win, right? And
I think this is so true. It's like, you want to find people who are like experts. You're like, hey, if you're like kind of curious, it's like you can tell, when you kind of ask the questions, it's like this person like really, really into it.
Yeah. So when I started thinking about this idea, I was director of product at Amplitude working on CDP. And I was like, I'm fairly good at product. I'm not going to get that much better staying in this role. What I really should be doing is I want to move to the go-to-market team. So I actually switched from reporting to the CPO to switch to reporting to the CRO. I moved teams to go learn everything I could about sales before building this product. So I was on the road for a year at Amplitude, just learning. I was in every weekly pipeline review meeting. I was working with every single RSD that we had, understanding how they thought and how they worked and the tools that they're using. Why do they use Clarity? Why do they instead of Salesforce? I was embedding myself into the job so that I can learn it, so that I can build a better solution. And so when I see people who don't go through that similar journey, I'm always like, how do you know?
Right. I mean, how do you feel like you have to do the job in order to build a product in the category? Or
I think it helps, right? Like I don't think you have to, but it definitely helps, and it helps build empathy for the customer, right? Like I think the best products built are those where the founder has a high degree of empathy for the people they're building for, right? Like if you've never done the job, how do you know? And if you don't know these people,
I mean, it's some people are just smart. They're doing user research. They're just like learning from that perspective. I mean, do you think that's a viable? There's a lot of listeners here. They're probably like, oh, hey, I've never done the job, but I talk to people.
Yeah, and there's
I'm not saying that's like one's better than the other, but
ServiceTitan is a great example, right? Like I think if you look at like other successful companies, right? Like the two founders of ServiceTitan, like hey, their parents or their family all did HVAC, plumbing kind of things, right? It was very easy for them to be like, hey, we've lived this, we grew up in families that built these types of businesses. How do we help serve them? So I think the thing I always tell people is like, do you love the people that you're building software for? Mm-hmm. Because fucking startups are hard. If you don't love helping make them impactful, you're not going to do a good job. You might be lucky. You might even be successful, but do you actually get a lot of joy from the work that you're doing, right? Like your time on earth is precious, right? You're not going to live forever. Do you get a lot of joy from it? And like, do you enjoy who you're servicing, right? And so like the first thing I always talk about founders is like, do you love these people? Like, do you care about them? And for me, it's like, it's like sellers or like, I love founder love.
Yeah, but if I'm on the other end of that, Patrick, like, how do I know that you're that person versus like actually, I mean, does the founder have to communicate that some aspect of their pitch to be like, I am that person? Like, do you have to have evidence of that in the narrative that you tell, whether a VC or something?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So I think it also depends.
Like I don't remember. I was like, man, did I dig into this?
I don't think you did.
I don't think.
Yeah. And I think this is the thing that I always dig into, right? Because like when startups are hard, like it's easy to quit, right? And some people won't. Like there's plenty of founders that will do it for a year and be like, this isn't for me. And you probably invested in some of these people,
right?
Right. But if you love what you do and you love who you service, right? Like, okay, I'm going to figure out a way if I can make this happen. Right. And regardless, it's like, I will make this successful because it's like, this is my life's mission is to work with these types of people. And that's hard. These are soft skills and these are like, how do you tease these things out in a pitch? But those are the things that I talk to when I talk to founders. I'm like, why are you servicing these people if you don't love them? Like, there's easier ways to make a buck, honestly. And if people are doing this just for the money, then it's like, there's easier ways to do that.
I want to end with some sort of very tactical things, just to as folks are building their first pitch. Like you said, one, you say deck memo. You're saying do both.
I start with the memo and then the deck comes out of it. So it's like I think that's always easy. And I always say like you're gonna get off the script as soon as you jump in a call with a VC, you're off the script. So you just have to be able to do the entire pitch conversationally. So
you have a perspective on like rules of thumbs are on slides, and
I love the Sequoia 10 slide format. If you have to have more than 10 slides, like you're not sharpening the pencil.
And practicing pitching, what is there a concept of practicing pitching?
Yeah, 100%. I record myself pitching, right? Like and then I say with Clarify now is I get all my call recordings, right? So like before we had this, like I would literally use QuickTime and I would record myself talking about this. And I had a set of questions that I assumed all the VCs were going through.
Did you write down those questions and say,
I had 50 plus questions that I thought VCs were going to ask me. And then I'd read the question and I'd answer, and I'd watch myself. I'd literally watch the recording of this. I was practicing effectively role playing.
And if you had to think about practicing, do you practice with your friends, or who are the best people to practice your pitch?
Your co-founder, if you have a co-founder, if you're a solo founder, grab a friend. I mean, I did this even by myself just to have reps at bat, right? Repetition is so important for any of these things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, that would definitely grab a friend in practice.
And founders come and say, hey, I have some ugly looking slides. What do you think about just like the delivery of the material?
Yeah, it's a funny question because I want the content and the pitch to matter more, but like people care about
Yours was fairly, it was
ugly.
No, I know actually it was not ugly at all. I think it was simple.
Yeah, I think this is the thing. Like
some people put a lot of words on slides and are just like putting a bunch of stuff. Like yours was like just nail the core message.
Yeah,
every slide has to be like, I know Vinod Khosla has this thing around like, hey, every word needs to matter. 100%. So just remove it.
So I'm a big believer in design by subtraction. So like if it doesn't matter, like if the thing that you're showing somebody doesn't add value, remove it. And so like I think about that for everything we do, like our product, right? Every feature that exists has to stand alone on its own. Every word on a slide, every word on a marketing landing page has to stand alone on its own. So like if it doesn't deserve a spot, like remove it. The word's so simple. And so for our slides, I was like, hey, and I actually, the best slide deck that I liked at the time is when I worked at Amplitude was the Mixpanel deck that they had, because I thought it was so simple. They published all their decks over time. And so I took a ton of inspiration from those ones, and they're all public. But yeah, for me, it's like, I think your deck shows what you value. So we spent a lot of time making sure that they were simple, easy to understand. And same with our memo. So like we try to structure it. I also think about it this way, right? Like if I'm drafting a memo, I want to do the work that you need to do in order to get the conviction to invest. So the memo is an artifact for me to clarify my own thoughts. I'm also generating an artifact that investor can then use, because every investor who's going to write you a check needs to draft a memo. So why don't I just do that work for you? And so it just helps you simplify the process of making.
The one thing I'll say that I'm having received lots of memos, is that I think people hide the risk conversation.
Yeah.
And I think founders need to make that a larger part of the conversation, because the risk and everything. I mean, look at S1. There's risks on a publicly traded company, but everyone hides the risk narrative, and because even though there's like literally 100% risk in everything.
Yeah, I had a risky assumptions section. Like these are the risky assumptions for the business.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, it's like in the appendix, but you can bring it up earlier. It's like,
well, I would tell VCs, I was like, hey, like you think about like the standard VC bet, right? You're gonna write a check. It's like, hey, 10% probability that this company is gonna be successful. It's like, no, this isn't a 10% probability. This is 4% probability that this company being successful. But if this company is successful, that 4% is gonna be a generational company. Mm-hmm. And so, like, would you rather invest in a 10% probability of a company getting 100 million, or would you rather invest in a 4% probability of this company getting $1 billion in revenue, right? And that was always the question that I'd ask for VCs is like, hey, this is going to be an outlier or it's not. Way risky, and the company might fail, but if it is successful, it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think if that's one thing that I would encourage founders to do is not to be shy away, because it is a partnership, right? Yeah. It's like, hey, you're pitching someone. What do you think we need to prove, right? What do we need to get right? If I give you X dollars, what do we need to prove in this specific period of time to get to the next stage? And I think there's misalignment there sometimes between what a founder pitches and what the investor believes needs to be true to achieve the next.
Well, I don't know if I told you this, but like this is one of there are a couple of realizations that I had coming from it early that probably worth going through. One is like, I was very much, I don't want to build a point solution. That was like very clear. Like we did the early thing. Yes, it was an exit, blah, 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 but I'm not building another point solution. I believe in big markets. We're working at a very small market. I believe in big markets now. And the third thing is like, everyone's in the fucking boat rowing, right? Like I had my investors not in the boat. They were, 100 yards back, maybe in the tugboat that we're going through. But I was like, I didn't send investor updates. I wrote them, never sent them. I literally every month I would write them, but I would never send them to our investors. I send an investor update every single month. I'm very fucking transparent with what's going well, what's not going well, and you're in the boat. It's like if you're on the cap
table,
he
does send a monthly updates, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, if you're on the cap table, you're in the boat rowing. It's like there's no free rides here. It's like, hey, you're part of the team. I'm gonna be just as transparent with you, and I expect you to help and work. It's like that's the thing, and you've been great at that.
Well, appreciate that. This is our first pitch, so I appreciate you sharing the Clarify story. I think there's a lot of tidbits there from how you think about the deck, how you think about memos, how you think about aspects of storytelling, and excited to do this with more founders of the future.
Well, Somrat, you've been an incredible investor and appreciate doing this as well, and excited for the other founders.
Excited to do this next time with some new folks.
Thanks.